What if a cartoon didn't just predict the future, but practically scripted it? A screenshot has been spreading like wildfire online. It supposedly shows a scene from a 2002 episode of The Simpsons. Donald Trump, his hand on a glowing orb, flanked by two mysterious men. Sound familiar? Because 15 years later, in 2017, that exact scene played out in real life, almost frame by frame. Coincidence? Clever satire? Or something far more unsettling? For over 3 decades, The Simpsons has made us laugh with its absurd humor, surreal characters, and cultural jabs. But every now and then, it steps into the eerie. The kind of eerie that makes you pause and wonder, how did they know? Because whether it's global health crisis, political chaos, or tech that didn't even exist yet, some of their storylines feel like predictions that came true. And as we step deeper into 2025, it's getting harder to brush them off as random. So today, we're diving into some of the most jaw-dropping Simpsons predictions that somehow became real. Some inspiring, others straight up chilling. Let's start with the one that broke the internet. It started as a cartoon image buried in a 2002 episode, Donald Trump reaching out to touch a glowing orb with two shadowy men standing on either side. At the time, it looked like classic Simpsons surrealism, strange, over the top, and kind of hilarious. But then came 2017. The real-world version unfolded in Saudi Arabia. President Trump, the Saudi king, and Egypt's president stood around an illuminated globe during the inauguration of a counter-extremism center. Cameras flashed, the internet went wild, and then someone compared it to that old Simpsons episode. The resemblance, uncanny. Same pose, same eerie lighting, same globalist vibe. It wasn't just a visual coincidence, it felt symbolic, like a scripted scene unfolding off the animation cells and into reality. How could a cartoon from over a decade earlier capture this bizarre image so precisely? Was it just parody gone prophetic? Or was this a moment where satire brushed up against something deeper, something we weren't meant to notice? Because the orb wasn't the only thing The Simpsons got weirdly right. Back in the year 2000, The Simpsons aired an episode called Bart to the Future. In it, Lisa becomes president of the United States and casually mentions inheriting a budget crisis from President Trump. At the time, it was absurd. Trump wasn't a politician. He was a flashy real estate mogul with a reality show. The idea of him becoming president sounded like a bad punchline, except it wasn't. In 2016, that punchline became reality. Donald Trump won the presidency in a moment that shocked the world. And suddenly, The Simpsons wasn't just a cartoon anymore, it was a crystal ball, but it didn't stop there. In another episode, The Simpsons hinted at a Trump 2024 campaign long before he announced it in real life. And in a blink and you'll miss it scene, the show teased Ivanka Trump running for president in 2028. A political dynasty drawn in yellow ink. Was this just brilliant satire with a lucky streak? Or is The Simpsons laying out a roadmap no one's supposed to take seriously until it happens? Because if they were right once, and then again, how many more moments are ticking on their timeline? And if the future of politics is already sketched out, what about the future of technology? In a 2016 episode, The Simpsons took viewers to a futuristic amusement park run entirely by artificial intelligence. At first, it's dazzling. High-tech, smooth operations, pure entertainment. But then, as expected in true Simpsons fashion, the whole thing collapses. The robots turn on humans, chaos erupts, and the satire goes off the rails. Back then, it felt like a parody of Westworld, a fun, ridiculous what-if moment. But today, that future isn't so distant. We now have AI writing scripts, robots flipping burgers, and self-driving taxis rolling through city streets. In Japan, robot waiters are taking orders. In the US, AI is being tested to manage warehouses, medical data, even legal paperwork. And experts like Jürgen Schmidhuber, one of the godfathers of AI, have warned about the dangers of runaway tech growth. The rebellion might not be laser-eyed Terminators. It could be slower, subtler, a shift where we hand over so much control to machines we don't even notice what we've lost. And that Simpsons episode, it starts looking less like a gag and more like a glimpse. Because when a cartoon predicts a robot uprising before ChatGPT or Boston Dynamics even made headlines, you have to ask, Were they just imagining things, or were they warning us? In one classic episode, The Simpsons introduced one of its most hilarious and outlandish inventions: a baby translator, a device that could decode a baby's cries, giggles, and babbles into full sentences. At the time, it was peak Simpsons humor, absurd, over the top, and charmingly ridiculous. But fast forward to today, and suddenly, it's not so crazy. Researchers have been diving into sound analysis and machine learning to understand infant vocal patterns. One project, spearheaded by Japanese scientists, is training AI to recognize specific types of crying, distinguishing between hunger, pain, or discomfort. Some startups are even developing apps that claim to translate baby sounds into understandable alerts for parents. What was once a cartoon punchline is now inching toward reality, one algorithm at a time. If successful, it could revolutionize parenting. No more guessing, no more sleepless nights wondering why the baby's screaming. Just scan the sound and get your answer. But here's the thing: The Simpsons aired this idea years before any of this tech even existed. So was it just an inspired joke? Or did the writers know how fast our world was about to accelerate? Because when you go from comic relief to cutting-edge reality, that's no longer just satire, that's foreshadowing. In one of The Simpsons' annual Treehouse of Horror episodes, Homer and Marge sit down to a romantic dinner, but they're not in a restaurant. They're not even eating real food. Instead, they're strapped into VR headsets, devouring a 5-star meal in a fully digital world. At the time, it felt like a jab at technology addiction, one of those only in The Simpsons moments meant to get a laugh. But now, it's turning into reality. Across the globe, companies are experimenting with immersive dining experiences using VR. Some cruise ships offer virtual environments that simulate anything from underwater scenes to dinner on Mars. In high-tech restaurants, customers put on headsets and eat in dreamlike simulations, surrounded by visuals and sounds designed to alter how the food tastes. Even AR-enhanced food, where dishes interact with the digital world, is slowly becoming a trend. And it's not just a gimmick. Scientists are discovering that our brains react differently to food based on the environment we experience it in, even if that environment is fake. That's right, your VR forest dinner might actually taste better than the same meal in your kitchen. So when Homer sat down to his pixelated dinner, it wasn't just a punchline, it was a preview. Another moment where The Simpsons blurred the line between ridiculous and real. And just when you think things couldn't get more sci-fi. Recently, the internet exploded with what looked like breaking news. Donald Trump behind bars. Screenshots started circulating. Grainy, dramatic images of Trump in an orange jumpsuit, standing in what looked like a prison intake room. One image even showed him being walked by officers down a hallway. People shared it like wildfire. TikTok, Reddit. Everyone was asking, did it finally happen? Except, it didn't. It turns out the screenshots weren't real. They weren't leaked. They weren't suppressed. They were AI generated. Someone had used deep learning tools to craft hyper-realistic images of Trump in jail. The lighting, the facial expressions, even the clothing, it all looked eerily convincing. And, for a moment, even seasoned news junkies couldn't tell what was real and what wasn't. It was fake news 2.0, but way more dangerous. And it brought up a bigger question. What happens when reality and fiction look identical? Because this wasn't The Simpsons. This wasn't satire or comedy. It was tech creating a new kind of prediction, one so believable, it nearly rewrote the headlines. We used to laugh when a cartoon predicted the future. Now, AI can fabricate it. There's a moment in The Simpsons where a character doesn't make a phone call, send a text, or record a video. Instead, they send a holographic message. It's quick. It's dramatic. It looks like something out of Star Wars. And back then, it was pure imagination, just another over-the-top gag layered into the show's endless creativity. But look around today, and that fantasy is starting to materialize. Tech companies are developing high-definition hologram displays that no longer require massive gear or dark rooms. Devices like the Looking Glass or HoloBox create 3D holographic projections you can view in full color without glasses. Even in healthcare, education, and live entertainment, holograms are entering the mainstream. Some schools are experimenting with hologram teachers. In some events, deceased artists are resurrected in 3D to perform on stage. There are even prototypes of hologram video calls, where the person you're speaking to appears in front of you, life-sized, as if they're really there. We're standing at the edge of digital evolution, and The Simpsons casually showed it to us years before the rest of us were ready to believe it. So maybe the question isn't if this becomes normal, maybe the real question is, what's next? And did The Simpsons already show it to us? Because what comes after virtual dinners and hologram calls? Hidden influence through music? Yeah, that's up next. In one episode, The Simpsons dives into the world of pop music, except it's not about chart-topping hits or bubblegum lyrics. It's about covert messaging. A boy band becomes wildly popular, fans go crazy, but behind the scenes, the music isn't just music. It's laced with unseen persuasion, pushing teens to enlist in the Navy. The joke is obvious, the satire thick, but it's also unsettling. Because as ridiculous as it sounds, the idea of music as manipulation isn't new. Throughout history, governments and organizations have explored using music and sound to influence mood, behavior, even decision-making. Propaganda anthems, nationalistic jingles, wartime radio tactics, even modern advertising relies on rhythm and repetition to subtly shape how we think and feel. And then there are the conspiracies, the ones about backward messages in vinyl records or coded language in pop songs that supposedly promote certain ideologies or behaviors. Most of it sounds like wild speculation, until The Simpsons casually turns it into a joke that suddenly feels a little too plausible. Because if a cartoon can joke about sonic manipulation years before AI-generated music or algorithmic mood playlists, what else are they hiding in plain sight? And if culture is that easy to influence, not long ago, another screenshot started making rounds online, this time showing Springfield engulfed in flames, buildings destroyed, alarms blaring, and a panicked news anchor screaming, "Global conflict has begun." The caption? The Simpsons predicted large-scale global conflict in 2025. People went wild. It was shared across conspiracy forums, YouTube thumbnails, even news aggregators. Some swore they remembered seeing the episode. Others called it yet another creepy Simpsons prophecy. But there's just one problem. That episode doesn't exist. There's no scene where a bomb hits Springfield in 2025, no apocalyptic broadcast, no mushroom cloud over Homer's house. It was all fake. Another AI-generated or edited image, crafted to look exactly like a still from the show. And once again, it worked. It played into the already eerie track record The Simpsons has. People didn't question it. They just believed it, because that's how convincing fiction becomes when you're primed to expect the impossible. In a way, the fake global conflict screenshot became a new kind of prediction, not of war, but of how easily panic can spread in the digital age. One false image, one viral tweet, and suddenly, the end of the world is trending. It wasn't real, but it felt real. And that might be scarier than the prediction itself. In a 2005 episode, Bart and Lisa take a glimpse into the future. The streets, empty. The skies, filled with flying cars zipping through the clouds like it's the new normal. Back then, it was the kind of classic, outrageous future fantasy The Simpsons loved to play with. It felt lighthearted, impossible, a Jetson-style joke baked into a world that barely had smartphones. But now, that world is getting closer than anyone expected. In 2023, a company called Samson Sky made headlines when its switchblade flying car successfully took flight, reaching over 500 feet in altitude. And they're not alone. Companies across the globe are racing to create flying vehicles. Some are even testing personal aerial taxis in urban areas. Granted, they're not parked in your driveway yet. The price tag? Around $170,000. Definitely not your average Uber, but the idea of taking to the skies to avoid traffic isn't a pipe dream anymore. It's in testing phases. It's on investor decks. It's happening. And once again, The Simpsons saw it coming. What's more chilling, they didn't frame it as exciting. The scene wasn't full of wonder. It was casual, mundane, almost boring, as if this outrageous tech would one day be just another background detail of life. Maybe that's the real prophecy, because what else have we been ignoring? At one point in the series, Homer makes an offhand comment, something casual, absurd, classic Simpsons nonsense. He warns about a third world war. Nobody takes him seriously. Why would they? He's Homer. The town laughs it off, the plot moves on, and the moment fades into the background like every other joke. But now, it doesn't feel so funny, because the world we're in today is simmering. Tensions between global powers are rising, superpowers are flexing military strength, conflicts in multiple regions have already escalated beyond diplomacy, and phrases like nuclear threat and proxy war aren't Cold War history, they're current events. So when a cartoon dad in the early 2000s casually throws out a line about the end of the world, and decades later, that fear feels a little too real, it's hard not to flinch. It's easy to say The Simpsons is just being edgy, that it's all coincidence, clever writing, satire. But what if it's more? What if these jokes are echoes of something deeper, something buried under the humor, pulsing beneath every strange prediction and surreal prophecy? And yet, despite everything, the chaos, the collapse, the fears, there's always one thing that The Simpsons does better than most. It gives us hope. So what do we make of all this? A cartoon that predicted health crisis, flying cars, AI revolts, even political chaos decades before they happened. Maybe the writers are just brilliant. Maybe it's all coincidence. Or maybe The Simpsons has always been more than a comedy, because behind the laughs, there's a strange pattern. A pattern that keeps blurring the line between parody and reality. And whether it's a warning, a roadmap, or something more mysterious. One thing is clear, the future might be unpredictable, but The Simpsons always seems one step ahead.